from the team at We Love Baking. Today I'm going to share with you how I make my carrot cake cupcakes. These are beautiful, light and fluffy carrot cupcakes topped with the most amazing cream cheese icing. Let's get baking. Right, so these cupcakes are super easy to make. To start with, we are going to put our wet ingredients. I'm doing it in a jug, but you can do it in a bowl, whichever you have. So my wet ingredients are some oil, buttermilk, vanilla or vanilla bean paste, 1 large egg, and I'm also going to add into this mix my sugars. Now I'm using 2 types of sugars to make these cakes. As you can see, I'm using caster sugar and I'm using light brown sugar. They both bring different things to the bakes, which is why I'm mixing them up rather than just using one or the other. So first up is my caster sugar. Now caster sugar obviously gives sweetness, but the reason I like using caster sugar over something like granulated is because it dissolves much more easily into the cake mixture, and that means you don't get any graininess, you don't get any kind of crystals of sugar in your bake. It dissolves really well and it gives you a really lovely sweet aftertaste. So Tate & caster sugar, I'm going to pop that in and measure it as I do. My second sugar is my light brown sugar. Now light brown sugar actually is effectively caster sugar with some molasses added to it, if you did not know. The reason I like using light brown sugar is because it brings a really lovely caramelly taste, which goes really well not just with the carrots but also with all the spices that I'm using. So this will give a really lovely flavour, but also brown sugar brings a lot of moisture to your bakes. So it will keep your cupcakes really moist and really tender, so they're not going to dry out as much as they bake. So the reason I like using Tate & Lyle sugars is because I get a lovely sweet aftertaste in my bakes rather than more of an earthy taste. I just find that works so much better for me as a sweet tooth lover. So I'm going to mix my wet ingredients together. So this is my wet ingredients and my sugars. So that is all the wet ingredients mixed up together. Now the final step here is for me to add my carrot in. So into the same jug, I'm going to tip all my grated carrot and just mix it through with my spatula. Right, so once you have mixed your carrots in, we're going to set that aside for a minute while we get a nice big mixing bowl out, because everything is going to get mixed in here in a second. So into my big bowl, I'm going to put some plain flour, some baking powder and some bicarbonate of soda, some salt, and now it's time for my spices. So the biggest amount of spice I'm using is cinnamon, cloves and cardamom, ground cloves and ground cardamom, a good grating of nutmeg. So all this is going to just get stirred together very quickly just to combine all the ingredients. And here's the big moment, it's time to combine the wet and the dry. Now when you're mixing your wet into your dry, you want to fold it in. You do not want to really go at it and whisk it really hard. You want to just combine the ingredients and not overwork it at all. If you overwork it, you will end up making them really tough cupcakes and not really moist and tender ones, because you will be overworking the gluten, and that will give you a very different texture, a very tough texture. So you're wanting to mix it just until it's streaky, because we have one final ingredient to add in. So as you can see there, there's still plenty of flour streaks, and that is absolutely fine. I'm going to stop there for a second because I'm going to add my final ingredient in. Now this one's an optional ingredient. You don't have to put it in if you don't want to. I have some walnuts here. You can also add some raisins in if you like to. So walnuts, these are, I've not broken them up, but I'm just going to, as I put them in, I'm just going to snap them into little pieces, however big chunks you want to do. You can chop them as well if you want, but I like them slightly bigger, so I like to do it by hand instead of with a knife chopping them up. So those are all going to go in as I break them up. So while I have been making my mixture, before I started, I prepared my cupcake tin, and I have my oven preheating. It's been preheating at 170 Celsius, that's 340 Fahrenheit. And once everything is completely combined, it's time now to put them into our cases. So the easiest way for me is to use an ice cream scoop. So I'm just going to grab some generous scoopfuls and pop them into my cases, and then these are going to bake in my oven for around about 20 minutes. Right, so my cupcakes have baked and they are cooled, and now it's time for some cream cheese icing. So into a large mixing bowl, I'm going to put my butter. This is unsalted butter, So I'm going to mix this with an electric whisk. You can do it by hand, but it will take you a long time. So one of these is really good for speeding up any baking that you're going to do. So I'm going to beat this until it's really light and fluffy, which will take me a few minutes to do. Right, so once your butter has reached this lovely light and fluffy stage, sift in my icing sugar. So as I sift this icing sugar, it's just a little reminder that whenever you're making buttercream, sifting it gets rid of any of the lumps and gives you a really lovely smooth final result. And before I mix the sugar in, I'm going to also add in some vanilla. And it's time to get mixing again. Right, so once your mixture has gone really pale and fluffy again, exactly like this, we are done with this part of it, and now it's time for our cream cheese. So I have my cream cheese here, but before I add it in with my butter and sugar mixture, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a little bit of a push down and soften it a little bit with my spatula. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it mix a lot more easily when I put it in with my butter and sugar, which is exactly what I want. Now, the thing with cream cheese as well is if you over mix it, it will split. And you will end up with a soggy mess, which is what we obviously don't want to happen. So softening it a little bit like this before you add it in with the butter is going to help prevent that from happening. So all I've done, as you've seen, is just mix it around in the bowl, just so I know that it's completely smooth and it's not stuck in any kind of block shape. That's exactly what I want. So all this is going to go in there. And time to get mixing again. That is it. That has literally taken me about a minute to combine everything together. And you can see it's a lovely thick icing. Now my cream cheese icing is ready to be used. It's time to pop it into a piping bag. So I have a piping bag here, fitted already. I've got in it a star-shaped nozzle. This is a 1M nozzle, but you can use any nozzle you like. This is just the one that I've chosen for today. Now I'm going to show you a really easy way of getting your buttercream into your bag without too much effort. If you've not seen this before, this is my favorite way of doing it. As you get used to it, it's really easy to do it one-handed, but when you first start, it's really hard to hold on to everything and do it at the same time. So my tip is, with the tip in the icing bag pointing upwards and fold it down, pop it into a tall glass, and then fold the edge of the piping bag over the rim of your glass. And what that's now done for me is it's given me a lovely little pocket for me to put some of my icing into. But because this is holding it open, I don't have to use my hands. It's a really easy way of doing it. So as you put your icing in, just gently push it further down the bag. And that's just going to push it all the way down and give you room to put more icing in as you go. Now, another top tip is you don't want to overfill your piping bag, because what you want to be able to do with the bit that's hanging over the edge is hold it up. I'm going to show you now. Let's move that out of the way. Is when this comes off, like so, you want to be able to not have any icing at the top there, because that's going to be twisted to help push all the icing further down. So you need to make sure you've got enough space in your bag. I know I've got plenty down there, but that will soon go. So squeeze it together, give it a twist at the top, twist it at the top, and then when you push it down, you've got to hold that really firmly and push it down from the top, and you can see my icing moving down the bag. That's exactly what I want. And that's how I'm going to, so I'm twisting it a bit more. I'm not doing anything else, that's still holding it nice and firm. But all my pressure when the icing comes out comes from this hand here, pushing it out off the piping bag. I'm going to pipe out first and then come back on top of what I piped in the middle. So now my cream cheese icing has been put on all my cupcakes. It's time to decorate them. Now there's loads of different ways, like different ways of piping your icing. There's loads of different ways you can decorate them as well. I'm going to show you 3 different ways that I like to decorate, just to give you choices. But do you know what? Get creative. That's what baking is all about, having a bit of fun and letting your creativity go. So my first way I'm going to show you, I'm going to put some nuts just around the edge along the bottom. There you go. So that's just all around the edge as a pretty little border, if you like. So that's one option. Another one that I like to do is just to put very simply into my icing. I'm just going to pop a nut straight in the very top. Just like that. Perfect. Keeping it simple doesn't mean it's not delicious. And of course, The final way I'm going to show you is just quite simply, I'm not even going to use a spoon, I'm just going to use my fingers, just a sprinkle of nuts over the top. And that's it. There's 3 different ways you can decorate your carrot cake cupcakes, and we are done. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit up that like button and let us know in the comments below if you make these cupcakes. Thanks for joining us today, my friends. Happy baking.